Have you ever experienced this? The night before an important exam or a long-awaited interview, you meticulously prepare every detail. You believe you're ready to face any challenge. Yet, the moment the first question arrives, all your knowledge and hard-earned confidence suddenly vanish. Your heart races, your hands tremble, and your mind becomes clouded, turning even the simplest things into impossible obstacles. In that moment, a sense of helplessness and regret creeps in, leaving you with lingering questions. Why can't I control my own emotions? But remember, you are not alone. Millions of people out there have faced these moments of losing composure, letting self-control slip away at the most crucial times. What's remarkable is that Stoic philosophy, with its practicality, simplicity, and depth, can truly help you train your mind, rise above anxiety, and become the master of yourself in any situation. And to start today's video, let's first learn: why do we freeze under pressure? Have you ever wondered why, in the most crucial moments when everything seems to depend on your performance, your mind suddenly goes blank? Why do even the most prepared among us sometimes freeze, unable to recall the simplest information or make the most basic decisions? This phenomenon, though it may leave us frustrated and bewildered, is deeply rooted in the architecture of our own minds. Inside each of us, there exist two distinct systems operating in tandem, what scientists often refer to as the monkey brain and the scientist brain. The monkey brain represents our primal instincts, honed through thousands of years of evolution. Its job is to keep us alive, to react quickly, to sense danger, to push us into fight, flight, or freeze when we face threats. On the other hand, the scientist brain is a much newer, more deliberate mechanism, the center of logic, reasoning, and learning. It's the part of us that plans, reflects, and solves complex problems. Under ordinary circumstances, these two systems work together, allowing us to navigate daily life with both intuition and reason. However, when pressure mounts, whether it's the tension of an exam room, the expectation of an audience, or the looming challenge of a job interview, our biology takes over. Stress floods the body with cortisol, the so-called stress hormone. Suddenly, the monkey brain seizes the wheel, shutting down the slower, rational scientist brain. In that instant, our thinking becomes clouded. Logic gives way to survival instincts. That's why, no matter how much we've studied or prepared, we can find ourselves paralyzed, unable to recall what we know so well, our minds gripped by a fog of panic. But does this mean we are powerless in the face of pressure? Absolutely not. Here is where the wisdom of Stoicism becomes a guiding light. The ancient Stoics understood that while we cannot always control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond. They taught that it is not external events, but our judgments about them that disturb us. The reaction of freezing is a natural biological reflex, yet Stoicism empowers us to step back, observe our own emotions, and reclaim agency over our minds. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reflected on his own struggles with anxiety and uncertainty. He famously wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This statement is more than a comforting thought. It is a challenge and an invitation. By recognizing that we cannot control everything that happens, but we can train our minds to respond with clarity and calm, we begin to shift from being victims of our biology to becoming masters of our fate. Let us consider the world of sports, a realm where pressure is both an adversary and a constant companion. Picture a gymnast, flawless in practice, but trembling when the spotlight shines. Or a student who answers every question in study groups, yet stumbles in the silence of the exam hall. These are not signs of weakness. They are reminders that the mind, untrained in the art of self-mastery, will always default to instinct when the stakes are high. What the Stoics offer us is not a promise that fear will vanish, but a roadmap for living alongside it. Instead of denying our emotions, we learn to notice them, to name them, and to understand which aspects are within our control. Through reflection, journaling, and mindful practice, we can gradually shift the balance from the impulsive monkey brain to the steady scientist brain. We remind ourselves in moments of stress to pause, to breathe, to focus on the present task, not on the outcome, not on the judgments of others, but on what is truly in our hands. The journey is not easy. Even Marcus Aurelius admitted to moments of doubt. Yet it is through these struggles that true resilience is forged. Each time we catch ourselves freezing and gently guide our attention back to what matters, we strengthen the very muscles of courage and self-control that Stoicism celebrates. Ultimately, to never get nervous in any situation is not about erasing anxiety from our lives. It is about understanding it, facing it with honesty, and choosing not to be its prisoner, but its master. As you walk this path, remember the wisdom of the Stoics. The mind can be trained, the heart can be strengthened, and with each challenge faced, you come closer to becoming the person you aspire to be. How to train your mind for emergency situations. Have you ever wondered why, at the most crucial moments, no matter how well prepared you are, you still can't seem to stay calm? It seems that with just one unexpected sound or an unforeseen situation, all your rationality and confidence evaporate. We tremble before a presentation, freeze in the exam room, or hesitate at the door of an interview. This isn't just a matter of personality, it's the ancient brain's natural response to danger. But here's the good news. Composure is not an innate privilege. It is a skill you can train, like a muscle, like a habit. And there, Stoic philosophy gives us its first fundamental principle. 1. The principle of getting used to danger. Imagine a firefighter stepping into flames for the very first time. Their eyes are filled with anxiety, their hearts pound uncontrollably, and their breath is short and shallow. The human brain, shaped by millions of years of evolution, is programmed to recognize and avoid threats, especially those never before encountered. Yet something amazing happens after repeated exposure. As fire becomes less unfamiliar, the firefighter grows calmer, breathes more slowly, and their gaze steadier. It's not that the danger disappears, but their mind have gotten used to it. This is precisely the core of the Stoic practice called premeditatio malorum, the art of anticipating adversity. Just like the firefighter, we too can train ourselves to stay calm by voluntarily placing our minds in challenging situations even before real danger appears. Remember, the brain is a remarkable learning machine. When you repeatedly visualize or mentally simulate difficult scenarios, your brain gradually adapts, no longer seeing them as such overwhelming threats. Neuroscience confirms that repeated exposure in the mind can lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol, and strengthen emotional control in the prefrontal cortex. The ancient Stoic philosophers understood this well, even thousands of years ago. Seneca famously said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." If we allow fear to take control, we lose our mastery over the mind. But if we dare to face and imagine the worst-case scenarios ahead of time, then when adversity truly arrives, we are no longer panicked. This quote reminds us not only of the futility of unnecessary worry, but also encourages us to get used to challenges so that when difficulties really strike, our emotions have been trained and our resilience is ready. Think again of the firefighter. Their first encounter with fire is inevitably frightening, but with each repeated exposure or even detailed mental rehearsal, that fear loses its edge. By the fifth or sixth time, the brain records this danger as just another part of life, no longer provoking a fierce survival response. This is why people who frequently face challenges tend to be far calmer than those who only observe from afar. For us, the practice of premeditatio malorum doesn't require seeking out real-world danger. It can be as simple as intentionally placing ourselves in anxious states, practicing tough questions in front of a mirror, or visualizing in detail any scenario that might make us nervous. Each time you do this, you are training your brain to become familiar with that feeling, so that when you finally face the real situation, it all feels more familiar and your mind won't slip into a red alert so easily. Modern science calls this process desensitization. The brain becomes less reactive to experiences it's been exposed to repeatedly. The Stoics call it fortitude, the process of forging one's will in the storms of life. Truly, when you choose to observe problems as an outsider rather than as a helpless victim, you realize that all emotions can be tamed with practice, patience, and awareness. So, how can we apply the principle of getting used to danger in our modern lives? Is it really possible to train for composure in situations like exams, interviews, or even facing bad news? That's the question for the next part. In the upcoming section, we will discover 3 real-life emergency situations to practice emotional control scenarios that everyone has faced and that you can start training for today. You might be surprised at the real power hidden within yourself. 2. 3 practical emergency situations to practice. Situation 1. Time pressure. Has it ever happened to you? You find yourself in the last minutes of an important exam, the clock ticking mercilessly on the wall. Your hands become clammy, your mind races, and a growing sense of panic threatens to overpower your focus. This is not a rare experience. Time pressure is perhaps one of the most universal triggers of nervousness and mental chaos. It is as if the mind, under the threat of an invisible deadline, forgets everything it knew only moments ago. The heart pounds, the breath shortens, and all the careful preparation threatens to unravel in the face of the clock's relentless advance. Why does this happen? From a scientific perspective, our brains are hardwired to perceive threats, be it a predator in ancient times or a ticking clock in the modern world. The amygdala, that small but powerful part of our brain, sounds the alarm, flooding our system with cortisol, the stress hormone. In that moment, the rational, scientific part of our mind is often hijacked by the so-called monkey brain, restless, emotional, and reactive. Evolution made this mechanism to keep us alive. but it is not always helpful in the context of a math test or a job interview. This is where practice comes in. We do not become calm under pressure by accident. Rather, it is something that can and must be cultivated intentionally. Consider the method of training yourself under realistic time constraints. By deliberately working through practice tests with a strict time limit, you recreate the conditions of urgency. You may even use the sound of a ticking clock or an alarm bell sound that triggers that familiar sense of running out of time. At first, this exercise may make you just as nervous as the real thing. You might notice your heart rate rising or your thoughts scattering, but do not shy away from this discomfort. As a Stoic would say, only by facing what we fear can we overcome it. We cannot stop the passage of time or silence the ticking of the clock, but we can, in each moment, choose where to place our attention. Instead of letting worry about the future or regret about lost time paralyze us, we bring our focus back to the present, to what can actually be done right now. The exam is ending, but this question is still in front of you. The interview is almost over, but you still have this one moment to answer with clarity. Let us imagine a real-life example. A student sitting in the exam hall with only 5 minutes left on the clock. The final bell rings out, a jarring sound that instantly sparks anxiety. It is so easy in that split second to freeze, to let fear cloud your mind. But the student, having practiced this exact scenario many times before, recognizes the sensation rising within. They take a deep breath, feel the air filling their lungs, acknowledge the anxiety, but do not become its victim. With this brief pause, they regain clarity and tackle the next question with renewed composure. The difference lies not in natural talent, but in the discipline of training the mind for these emergencies. Consider also the story of a rookie firefighter, trembling with fear at the sight of the first blaze. The heat, the smoke, the roar of the flames, every sense screams danger. The first time, panic is overwhelming. But after several encounters, after repeatedly stepping into the fire and learning to master the surge of adrenaline, the firefighter discovers a new stillness within. By the 5th or 6th time, the panic has transformed into presence. Experience has taught the mind not to run, but to remain. So when you next find yourself under pressure, whether in an exam room, a high-stakes interview, or any emergency that life throws your way, remember, the clock is not your enemy. It is simply a teacher calling you to practice the art of presence. Trust in your preparation, embrace the discomfort, and focus on what you can control in this very moment. With time and with practice, you will find yourself growing calmer, more resilient, and truly unshakable in the face of the ticking clock. Situation 2. Uncomfortable spaces. It's easy to underestimate how much our environment shapes the way we feel. We all have memories of entering a stuffy, crowded room, a narrow elevator filled with strangers, a windowless office where the air seems stagnant, or a hot, noisy exam hall. In these moments, our minds begin to wander restlessly. The walls feel like they're closing in, the heat intensifies, and our focus is consumed by nothing but discomfort. Suddenly, the smallest distraction becomes an avalanche. Anxiety builds up, and even the simplest task feels overwhelming. The question that naturally arises is, why do such spaces have such power over our minds? The answer lies not just in our psychology, but also in our biology. Our brains are hardwired to react to signs of discomfort and restriction. Thousands of years ago, Cramped or overheated spaces could signal danger, a lack of fresh air, or room to escape. Today, those same biological alarms ring loud even in harmless scenarios. A crowded subway car, a tiny meeting room, or a test center filled with silent tension. The hormone cortisol surges through us, and with it comes the urge to flee or freeze. Yet in most cases, running away is neither possible nor necessary. The real challenge is to retrain our minds to recognize discomfort not as a threat, but as a temporary state we can manage. As Epictetus wrote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." This simple yet profound statement is a reminder that the nature of an experience lies not in the external circumstance, but in the way we perceive it. A hot, crowded space is not inherently anxiety-inducing. It is our resistance, our labeling of it as bad, that amplifies our discomfort. The most effective method to cultivate this calm is through deliberate exposure. Just as a musician practices in noisy rooms to prepare for unpredictable concert halls, you too can train your mind to adapt by working or studying in a variety of spaces. Start with a familiar, comfortable spot, then gradually move to environments that feel less pleasant. Try reading in a busy cafe, brainstorming in a small windowless office, or even simulating exam conditions in a cramped study room. Each time you expose your mind to mild discomfort, you're sending a message. This is not dangerous. I am safe. I can handle this. Over time, your brain learns to down-regulate its stress response. The once overwhelming discomfort becomes just another sensation, a background noise, not a blaring alarm. What's crucial is to stay present during these exercises. Notice the physical sensations, the warmth on your skin, the murmur of voices, the closeness of walls, but refuse to attach negative judgments to them. Remind yourself that your mind is capable of adapting. This is the very heart of Stoic practice, separating what is within our control, our thoughts, our responses, from what is not, the temperature, the noise, the number of people around us. It is in these uncomfortable spaces where our nerves are tested that we have the greatest opportunity to grow. With each conscious effort, each small victory over anxiety, you are not only building mental resilience, but also embracing the truth that your environment is not your enemy. It is simply the stage on which you practice mastery of the self, and in time you will discover that the true source of comfort lies not in the world outside, but in the steady, unshakable calm you cultivate within. Situation 3. Distractions. Sometimes it is not the looming crisis or an intense confrontation that shakes our resolve, but the gentle, insidious interruptions that seep into our focus. Imagine sitting for an important exam in a room so silent you can almost hear your own heartbeat, or conversely, trying to deliver a presentation while the muffled noise of the city seeps in from the window, or your phone vibrates persistently in your pocket. In such moments, whether it is the weight of silence or the chaos of noise, our minds can wander, splinter, and lose their sense of direction. This is the subtle tyranny of distractions, the way our environment, by being too quiet or too loud, quietly undermines our control over our own thoughts. Neuroscience tells us that our brains are wired to respond to novelty. Absolute silence is so rare that it can make every small sound a jarring intrusion. On the other hand, constant noise keeps the brain on alert, forcing us to process unnecessary information, draining our mental energy. Both extremes, too much noise or too much silence, can be powerful sources of distraction, pulling our attention away from the task at hand, no matter how important it is to us. But this is not just a matter of biology. The real art lies in how we respond. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They taught that while we cannot always control our environment, we can always control our attention and our reaction to it. As Epictetus wisely said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." These words become a guiding principle when confronting distractions. They invite us to recognize that the environment may always be unpredictable, but the locus of control lies within our own minds. Training your mind to withstand distractions is, in essence, a form of practical Stoicism. Begin by intentionally exposing yourself to environments that test your limits. If you are someone who finds silence oppressive, try working or studying in a quiet library until you make peace with the stillness. If noise easily unsettles you, choose a bustling cafe or a busy park and practice focusing amid the commotion. At first, your mind will rebel, jumping at every footstep or whisper, every car horn or sudden hush. But with practice, your attention will grow stronger, much like a muscle able to hold steady even as chaos or silence swirls around you. The Stoic method of meditation offers another powerful tool. In Stoic meditation, you simply observe your thoughts, feelings, and the environment, but you refuse to let them control you. When a loud noise erupts, or when the quiet becomes unbearable, acknowledge it then. Gently but firmly, return your focus to your breath or to the task before you. Over time, this practice creates a buffer between stimulus and response, teaching your mind that external circumstances are not masters of your inner world. Ultimately, to be truly unshakable is to choose what you give your attention to, regardless of the distractions that life throws your way. Distractions, whether thunderous or silent, are inevitable. But as the Stoics have always taught, you are not defined by what happens around you, but by how you master yourself within it. By practicing focus, even in emergency situations of distraction, you are building not only resilience, but a kind of freedom that no environment, no matter how noisy or still, can ever take from you. Application in interviews and real life. When it comes to interview moments that can change the trajectory of our lives, nervousness is perhaps the most universal emotion. Whether you are fresh out of school, stepping into your first corporate interview, or an experienced professional seeking new opportunities, that familiar knot in the stomach can still find you. But what if, instead of letting this anxiety overpower us, we learn to master it, transforming each nerve-wracking experience into a field for inner growth? Imagine yourself on the morning of a big interview. You have spent days researching the company, rehearsing possible answers, and even picking out the perfect formal outfit. This act of dressing sharply is not just about making a good impression, it's a ritual that signals to your mind, "Today, I am stepping into an arena that matters." When you look at yourself in the mirror, you see not just your reflection, but a version of you that is prepared to meet the moment. This, in itself, is a small but powerful exercise in self-mastery, an embodiment of the Stoic principle of preparation. And yet, even with the best preparation, the reality of waiting outside the interview room, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for what feels like an eternity, can trigger a cascade of nervous thoughts. Our minds race with worries about potential questions, how we will be judged, or what will happen if we falter. Here, modern science gives us a window into what is happening inside. The stress hormone cortisol floods our system, sharpening our senses, but also making it easy to freeze or forget. Stoicism invites us to recognize this very moment as a test, not just of knowledge, but of character. How do we reclaim composure when anxiety threatens to overwhelm us? One practical approach, grounded in both psychology and Stoic wisdom, is to intentionally disrupt the stress cycle with simple acts of joy. Instead of letting your thoughts spiral, watch a short comedy skit, recall a memory that makes you laugh, or listen to music that genuinely uplifts you. By doing so, you gently lower cortisol and boost the hormones of happiness, serotonin and dopamine, rebalancing your internal state. These are not mere distractions. They are strategic, conscious choices to redirect your energy. In the Stoic sense, you are training your mind to separate what is within your control from what is not, and to actively choose your response. But true mastery requires more than momentary tactics. It is about systematic, deliberate practice. This is where mock interviews become invaluable. Each rehearsal is a controlled exposure to the real pressures you will face, an opportunity to build resilience one step at a time. The more you place yourself in these practice arenas, the less intimidating the real event becomes. As Epictetus so wisely said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." When you put yourself through mock scenarios, you are not simply practicing answers. You are training your mind to be still and centered amid uncertainty. Epictetus's words remind us that real freedom is not the absence of difficulty, but the power to maintain self-command, even when every instinct screams otherwise. This lesson applies far beyond the interview room. Life will throw you into countless unexpected situations, delays, disappointments, unfair judgments, or opportunities that appear and vanish in an instant. The person who has trained their mind in small, everyday arenas will be the one who stands firm in the face of life's storms. Stoicism is not just about philosophical reflection. It is a call to active living. It means proactively preparing for obstacles, rehearsing for adversity, and most importantly, approaching every situation with the calm assurance that comes from knowing you have already faced discomfort and chosen not to be ruled by it. So, next time you find yourself waiting, heart pounding, palms sweaty, remember, these are not just signs of weakness, but invitations to step into the role of the observer, to witness your own mind in action, and to practice mastery in real time. With every repetition, you build a foundation of inner strength that no external event can shake. But if preparation and practice are so powerful, what is the secret to making them stick? Is there a hidden ingredient that transforms knowledge into true mastery and fleeting courage into lasting confidence? In the next section, we will reveal the single most crucial element that separates fleeting success from lifelong resilience. Stay tuned, because understanding this key may change the way you approach not only interviews, but every challenge life has to offer. The key: discipline and persistent practice. No matter how many insightful methods or scientific explanations you encounter, none of them will bring real change unless you approach them with true discipline and a persistent commitment to practice. In the search for a mind unshaken by nerves, this is the principle at the heart of all transformation. Every tool, every philosophical lesson, every scientific technique is only as powerful as your willingness to live with them, day after day, even especially when progress seems slow and invisible. Imagine for a moment the journey of an athlete training for a marathon. There is no single day that transforms a novice into a champion. Instead, greatness is quietly built in the countless hours of running under the rain, the early mornings, the unglamorous routines repeated over and over again. Likewise, the Stoics teach us that mastery over our emotions does not come from a single burst of inspiration or a quick mental trick. It is a gradual, patient process, a kind of mental gym where we strengthen the muscles of our mind with disciplined repetition. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, famously said, "Nothing great is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time." This simple yet profound wisdom reminds us that mastery in any aspect of life requires time and persistent effort. When you feel nervous, when anxiety takes over, it is not a sign of weakness or failure. It is a natural response, the monkey brain reacting to uncertainty and threat, a remnant of evolution meant to keep us safe. But to move beyond that instinct, to let your scientist brain, the rational, observing mind, take the lead, you must train it daily. Each small act of self-control, each moment of conscious breathing, each time you confront your fears and choose to stay present is like adding another rep in your mental gym. At first, the progress may seem almost unnoticeable. You may still stumble, feel your heart race, or your thoughts scatter. But with each day of practice, something shifts. Your nervous system slowly learns to trust your calm intention. Your brain rewires itself, and what once seemed overwhelming gradually loses its power over you. This is the unseen magic of discipline. It accumulates quietly beneath the surface until one day you realize you have become someone different, steadier, calmer, able to stand firm in the face of pressure. It is vital then to redefine what progress means. Most people expect an instant transformation. One technique, one mantra, and all anxiety will vanish. But the Stoic path is humbler and more honest. It invites you to measure progress by your persistence, not by perfection. Did you pause and breathe, even just for a moment before reacting? Did you remind yourself, this feeling is temporary and I can choose my response? Did you return to practice even after a setback? If so, you are already winning a quiet victory over your old self. Discipline is not about harshness or self-denial. It is a gentle but unwavering commitment to growth. Every small act, waking up a bit earlier to meditate, reflecting on your emotions before sleep, applying Stoic lessons in your daily challenges, builds your inner strength. Over time, this discipline becomes a source of deep confidence. You learn that you do not need to control every outcome, only your effort and attitude. You realize that with patient practice, even the most anxious mind can be transformed. So the next time you stand on the threshold of an interview, an exam, or any situation that once filled you with nerves, remember, it is not a matter of talent or luck, but of persistent training. Trust the process. Trust that each disciplined step is shaping a new version of yourself, one that can face life's most crucial moments with clarity and courage. Because in the end, the key is not found in secret techniques or magic solutions, but in the simple daily discipline of persistent practice. And this is a path anyone can walk, as long as you are willing to take the first step again and again. To sum up, anxiety is a natural part of being human. But with the right training and by embracing the Stoic mindset, you can stop letting anxiety control you and start taking charge of every situation. Remember, you are not powerless. Every moment you face your fears is a chance to become stronger, more confident, and more prepared for all the beautiful challenges that life has to offer. This is not just about avoiding discomfort. It's about growing into the best version of yourself, step by step. So, don't wait. Start practicing today. Train your mind like a true Stoic warrior, with discipline, awareness, and courage. The more you practice, the more natural calm and resilience will become. Your future self will thank you for every effort you put in now. Together, let's create a life where fear loses its grip, and only calmness and inner strength remain.